Welcome to the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. I'm Melisa Lieberman, a fellow IC and business coach. On this podcast, I teach you to become a consistently booked independent consultant without becoming a pushy salesperson or working 24/7. If I can do it, you can too. Listen on to find out how. Welcome to episode 159 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. This is Melisa Lieberman, and I am thrilled you are here today. I can't wait to dive into this topic with you about how to land consulting clients more quickly by offering a diagnostic. It is so exciting. So many good things to share with you. But before we dive into this, I want to just give you a little update. After I record this episode and do a few more things, we're headed up to the mountains for spring break. We usually go to the beach. This year, we didn't quite get ourselves together. And luckily, we live in Colorado, so we can drive up to the mountains. And in a couple of hours, we'll be in an awesome destination. We haven't been, it's so crazy. We live in Colorado. We have not been skiing since 2000, I think. 2000. I don't think it was 2000. Might have been 2019. So bad. So crazy how quickly the years go. Mostly it's because we swim every weekend almost. And so it's hard to get up there, but excited. The kids are excited. At least two of the three of them are excited anyway. And it should be really fun. So that's where I'm headed later after this. And yeah, let me just tell you a little bit about how this episode came to be. There are so many times where consultants ask me, how do I land clients more quickly? Maybe you notice that you've got an upcoming gap in your roster and your client roster, and therefore a gap in revenue potentially. Or maybe right now you don't have as much client work as you would want to have. And so you're worried about cash flow. Or maybe you're not worried about cash flow, but you're not tracking against your revenue goals for this year. Whatever the reason is, there's oftentimes such a need in our business to be able to land clients more quickly. And as a result, I'm always thinking about this. How does a consultant land clients more quickly? What tools and strategies and mindsets can you be leveraging to land clients more quickly in those types of scenarios? And so how this episode came to be. One of the ways you can land clients more quickly is by offering a diagnostic. And so that's what we're going to talk through today. So let me tell you what the agenda is. I'll share with you first some companion resources that go with this episode. Then we'll talk about what is a diagnostic, just so we're on the same page. We'll talk about why offering a diagnostic as one of your service offerings in your service portfolio can be incredibly valuable for you and for your business, and to make selling easier, which we're always looking for, and more speed to revenue. So we'll talk about why offer a diagnostic. Then I'll give you some examples just at a high level. And then we'll talk about 3 case studies. So real life examples of how you can implement a diagnostic in your business using examples from other consultants who have done so. And then I'll share with you the mistakes you want to avoid when you're implementing this strategy. And then finally, I'm going to give you the 5 steps to put this into action, including 5 really powerful questions to ask yourself as you're trying to figure out and build out your diagnostic. So much jam-packed into this episode. I'm excited to share it with you. So let's start with, what are the companion resources for this episode? The first one is, I recommend you go back and listen to episode 146 after you listen to this episode 159. They go hand in hand really well. Episode 146 is productizing your consulting services. So it will help you to take the work that we're doing today on this episode into the next level of detail, so that as you're designing your diagnostic. Then we can't get away without talking about the other companion resource, which is the book, How to Grow Your Consulting Business. I released it in January of this year. If you're listening to this in the real time, if you haven't yet downloaded it, I am right now offering it for free as a download. I might not do that forever, but right now I am. So go grab it at melissalieberman.com/book. You'll get the entire PDF. And if you go to chapter 6, it talks about a whole chapter dedicated to your consulting service portfolio. So offering a diagnostic is part of that consulting service portfolio. So chapter 6 can help you round out your service portfolio. And then one other quick note before we dive into what a diagnostic is in more detail. A handful of you have told me that when you go to Amazon, you cannot find the book. I've been doing some research with the publisher about this. And what we've come down to is we believe that Amazon is, when you search for my name, especially, Amazon automatically changes my name from Melisa to Melissa, who doesn't exist, and the book is not there. So if you are trying to find the book, we'll put the link in the show notes so you can go grab the paperback. I recommend having both. The toolkit that goes with the PDF, if you go download that at the melissalieberman.com/book, you'll get both the book itself and the toolkit that helps you implement each of the 14 steps to grow your consulting business. And then you can go grab the book so you have it in paper as well. I love paperback books. And you can find that on Amazon. We'll put the link in the show notes because it has been a little bit tricky. People are telling me they can't find it, including my mother, by the way. She is telling me she can't find it either. It may be switching the name on her as well. She's the one who picked my name with and only one S. Anyway, with that, let's dive into today's topic overall is how to land consulting clients more quickly by offering a diagnostic. So let's talk about, just to get on the same page, what is a diagnostic? Simply put, a diagnostic is a type of service offering that you can offer. Another way to say that is an assessment that helps you to uncover challenges with a potential client or with a client and helps you to analyze what's going on in their business where they may not be getting the results that they're looking for. So it's a process by which you're assessing a certain piece of their business, whether it's people, process, technology, and helping you to understand what their goals are against those areas of their business, and then uncover what are the blockers to achieving those goals, so that then you can give them a really solid action plan of steps that they would take to advance further toward the objective that they've got. So one way this might look from a diagnostic perspective is that you're gathering and analyzing relevant data with a client. You might be conducting interviews with key stakeholders, and then taking all of the data points that you've gathered to identify strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. You've heard of a SWOT analysis before. That's an example of a diagnostic, and providing that back to your client so that they can really get a full picture of what's going on. It's done by you, who's an expert in the space that you're evaluating. You're external, so it's giving a different lens or perspective against their challenges that may be hard for them to see because they're inside of it. And it's giving them, really a good blueprint or roadmap or strategy for them to start making some decisions about priorities and budgets and things like that in their business. The diagnostic will help you and your client to overcome those underlying issues or challenges or areas for improvement, and give them those valuable insights and recommendations and proposed solutions in a really simplistic way. This type of diagnostic can be done, depending on how you design a diagnostic, it could be done in hours, in days, or weeks, but it's a very short term type of an offering that is really value packed for your client, because it gives them those perspectives that are oftentimes challenging for them to either be able to see on their own because they're in the challenge, or to have the time to carve out to look at this big picture. So that's what a diagnostic is when we're talking about that today. I'll share with you some examples now. So let's talk about a few real life examples. From a diagnostic perspective, you may come in and do or maybe the company that you're working with, the client that you're working with is having some retention issues of their top tier talent. And so you would develop a diagnostic that comes in and creates a retention root cause analysis. What is the root cause analysis? And then helping them to see what the drivers are or the root causes underneath their retention issues, and then creates a plan for them that helps them to see if they take these top 3 actions, they will start to turn around those issues, as an example. So you may build a diagnostic around that to say, we look at these 10 points of your retention, your employee engagement strategy, your employee retention strategy and make recommendations to them. Another example of a real life diagnostic that consultants use are client customer journey mapping. So you may come in and analyze step by step of a client's customer journey. Perhaps they're having issues with upselling their own customers. So you come in and you look at that journey step by step and then diagnose it and make recommendations in terms of best practices. Another example you may do, I was just talking to a consultant the other day. She does regulatory compliance audits. So she comes in before an auditor and does a lot of compliance auditing to help make sure that when they go through with the audit, it flies through seamlessly and no issues are uncovered. And that's a great way to get your foot in the door at a client, right? When you come in, you assess them, you help audit them, whatever it is, then that leads to follow-on work. And we'll talk more about that here in a moment. Another example of a real life diagnostic that consultants are using is an M&A organizational impact assessment. So as part of an M&A scenario for a given industry, this particular example that I'm sharing with you is this consultant comes in after the M&A is finished, completed like all the logistics of the M&A and is closed. That was the word I was looking for. That merger or acquisition is closed and it's maybe 6 months down the road and they've done all of the low-hanging fruit in terms of integrating the organizations. This particular consultant comes in and looks at the organization and helps them to figure out, okay, where are the underperforming areas now that you've done those initial stages of the integration, and what can the next 18 months look like in terms of a best practice for M&A within a certain industry. So those are some examples. Look, you're an expert. You're someone who does the type of work that you do over and over again and sees so many different examples in so many different types of organizations. Whereas your clients are typically within, they've been in their own organization, sometimes for decades, but usually for, multiple years, and they don't have the benefit of the visibility that you have. They also don't have the benefit of being outside of the organization and not kind of embedded in the politics that you have. And so your ability to come in and create this type of diagnostic for them is incredibly valuable. Even if they might have some of that internal skill set on their own, having you as an external resource to do this type of diagnostic is incredibly valuable. So that then bridges us into why would you add a diagnostic type service offering to your mix of services? I'm sure this is pretty apparent, but I just want to say it explicitly here. When you're selling the type of diagnostic that we've just been talking about, number one, it's very tangible, right? Sometimes the work that we do as consultants can be more intangible. It can be difficult to describe. It can be difficult to sort of, especially when it's very customized or bespoke, it can be really difficult to get everyone on the same page about what we're working toward, what we're talking about, what the outcomes are of a given engagement. And so for you, this type of an offering is incredibly tangible, easier to describe, easier to connect to the value points for a given client, easier to connect to how it solves a client's pain points or helps them start to solve those pain points. And so because of all of that, it makes it easier for you to uncover leads and opportunities. It makes it easier for you to drive to a faster decision versus a larger engagement. It makes it easier to open the door with potential clients to have a conversation. And just as a little teaser, next week, we're going to talk about how to use another form of a diagnostic to drive more leads in your business. So be sure to come back for episode 160. But anyway, the reason why you want to really think about putting this type of diagnostic in place in your business is to drive faster decisions. So that's where we come back to how this works for more quickly landing consulting business. It also helps you to get behind the curtain with that client more quickly so that you're able to understand their business context more deeply in real life versus trying to do that in a sales discovery process. When you sell a quick hit type of a diagnostic engagement, then they've made an agreement with you and you become a trusted advisor to them or start to become a trusted advisor to them. So now you're behind the curtain. they're talking to you from the lens of you're helping them versus you're selling something to them. And so that can help you to start building a trusted relationship more quickly and ultimately help you to uncover opportunities to not only give them value as a result of the diagnostic that you're doing, but also so that it sets you up to propose follow on business for yourself. Again, from the vantage point of already being in a relationship with that client and proposing other ways you could work together versus from the outside where you're trying to get your foot in the door. So you can see these types of diagnostics can be very valuable for you in your business to more quickly land consulting clients. And it also is really valuable for your end client because they're getting the benefit of your expertise. They're getting the benefit of the diagnostic that you've created and are refining engagement over engagement and seeing the types of challenges and problems that your client is facing over and over again and being able to recommend best practices to them or to help them to see blind spots that they wouldn't have realized are there. That's why this can be such a powerful service offering for both you and for your end clients. So, with that, let's talk about making this really tangible for you. And I'm going to do that through giving you 3 case studies. The first case study is a consultant who built their own diagnostic. And so you most likely have a lot of expertise against which you could build a diagnostic like this consultant did. So I'll just walk you through some of the high level steps they took to build their diagnostic. Of course, I'm not going to give you all the details of what the diagnostic is or what it does because that's their own proprietary information, but I'll give you high level so you can think about how this would apply to your business. So what they did is they started out this particular consultant in building their own diagnostic, and you can leverage these same steps. But the prerequisite here is that they have a specific industry that they help, a specific niche and specialization. So results that they help their clients to create within that industry. And so what they did is they just sat down and thought about what does best in class look like with respect to this particular scenario for their own clients. I'll give you a little bit of detail here so that it's more clear what I'm talking about. For them, they sat down and said, okay, what does a client journey look like for the particular niche that they're in, the particular specialization that they're in? So for their own clients, how do those corporate clients' journey look as they're going through and engaging with the company? And ultimately, how do they increase the overall lifetime value of their customers as a result of this journey? So this consultant sat down and thought about and mapped out what are the best in class components of a customer journey for this particular niche so that her own clients then could be more clear and she could leverage this diagnostic as a way to uncover the areas and opportunities that company that she's working with has to improve their client journey and ultimately to increase the overall lifetime value of those clients or those customers rather. I recognize here as I'm talking, I'm using the word customer and client changeably. I'm just going to take one more moment here to hopefully make it a little bit more clear and then we'll keep moving. So the consultant sat down, she mapped out what ultimately became an 8-point diagnostic for her to go to her own clients with and say, look, let's walk through your customer journey and look at it in these 8 points so that ultimately those end customers that work with her clients are retained for longer and increase the overall lifetime value of those particular customers of her clients. Hopefully that's super clear. You get the point. I have a client. She's a consultant. She works with her clients and those clients have customers. And so we're trying to increase the overall lifetime value of the end customers. And it starts with this, what we'll call the MVP, the minimum viable product that the consultant created, which was an 8-point diagnostic that she comes in and looks at her end clients' customer journey and really diagnoses, what that looks like and how it can be improved to increase the overall lifetime value. Okay, I've said it in a couple of different ways, so I'm hoping it's really clear now. So then what she did is she took this 8-point diagnostic. Again, it was just an MVP. We're not trying to create any perfection here. We're not trying to write a textbook. What we're doing is what makes the most sense for her type of client. And it boiled down to this 8-point diagnostic for a customer journey that she created. And then she named it. And then from there, she trialed it on some past clients. She went back to some past clients who she already had a relationship with. She already understood a lot of the kind of the underpinnings of their operations and where the challenges were. And so it was really valuable to go back and trial this 8-point diagnostic on those past clients. She even went back and trialed it on a past employer of hers just to get 3 or 4 data points and using this in real life. And she did this, a few of them were free, a few of them were paid ultimately. But her goal was getting an easy way into those relationships and testing out this diagnostic so she could refine it through usage. A lot of times we think we need to refine something kind of in the lab and get it really, really, really good before we start using it. And ultimately, you can't learn as much if you're trying to do it on your own. The only way to learn is to be willing to put it out there for it to not be perfect, which honestly, nothing ever is, right? You're always going to be refining something. And so one of the ways to do that is to go back with past clients, again, who you have that relationship with, you have that context with, or even past employers, and to go through this type of MVP process, or this process to test your MVP. Ultimately, for this particular consultant, it ended up evolving into a 10-point diagnostic through that testing and refining that she did with her past clients and past employer. And so then she had this 10-point diagnostic that she was then able to start selling to her consulting clients. And it made things so much smoother for her in her business and decreased her sales time as a result, and also increased her close rate as a result of adding this type of diagnostic offering into her business. And we'll talk more next week about more of the marketing and sales side of this equation and how it can reduce using diagnostics can in the marketing and sales process. So even really skinnying down your diagnostic to use it as a part of your sales process. We'll talk more about that next week. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Today, we're talking about how to use a paid diagnostic in your business as one of your service offerings to get your foot in the door more quickly, to create trust and a relationship with a client more quickly, and ultimately to reduce the sales cycle for you and increase your close rate. So that's a first example where this particular consultant built her own diagnostic and continues to refine it to this day. The second and third examples are really very similar, but I wanted to give you a couple different flavors. And that is when you partner with another company who's already built a diagnostic. So in this second example case study, it's about a consultant who partnered with a software company that part of the software provides diagnostics for startups to help them operationalize their business. So there's a lot of metrics in the software that helps them to operationalize their business and to, continue to refine and deliver for their own end clients. And so this consultant became a preferred partner of that software company. You may have software companies in your space that your clients leverage really heavily. Maybe it's a software product that's just known for in your industry as the go-to software for a particular type of an engagement. They may have some diagnostic type functionality within the tool itself, or there may be some way to wrap around the software a diagnostic. So think about it, that's more of a offline process, not part of the software. So that maybe give you some ideas about how this could apply to your own business. But this particular consultant became a preferred partner of this company. They had to go through some kind of a process to get to that point. And then that company, that software company that they've partnered with that provides the diagnostics, along with other things for the end customers, they send her leads. And they also send her marketing materials and a sales process, kind of a toolkit for marketing and selling this diagnostic. And so this works really well for her because what she's done is taken the tool itself and the relationships that she's got with the software company, and she's added on all of her expertise around it. So she didn't just take it off the shelf and try to start selling it. that can become much more of a commodity when you do that, especially if there are a lot of other consultants leveraging that type of a tool. What she's done is taken their materials and then added very specifics around her own specific industry that this is operating for, the size of businesses that are her ideal clients, and created some processes and intellectual property around it with respect to the diagnostic so that it is even more compelling and it's seen as a differentiator versus her just being a reseller. So, why this can work for some consultant, and let me just take a moment here. I've also seen consultants frequently make these types of relationships with software companies or other types of companies, even that are offline, like a Strengths Finders or something like that. And they don't put their unique spin on it. And they expect it to kind of sell itself as a way to bypass lead generation and selling. And then nothing comes of it. So now they've just spent a lot of money for training or certification or access, and then nothing comes of it. And the difference between why this can work for some consultants and not for others is that those consultants who are able to take the tool, in this case, a software tool, and put their own unique spin on it, like the example I gave you, to apply it to a specific industry or to just make it more specific than it already is, and then put their own marketing and sales lens around that and process around that, are the ones who make this successful and stand out and aren't just another commodity on a list of potential vendors that, when a potential client looks on that list, who knows if how they pick, maybe eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or they just pick someone because of the geography, or maybe they just end up not picking anyone at all because they don't really know which one to trust. And so it all becomes word of mouth. And so for you, as you think about if you want to go down this path of partnering with a software company that can provide this type of diagnostic type of functionality, think about how do you make it unique to your own business and your own expertise and for your own ideal clients. Okay, let's wrap up with a third example, which is similar. In this case, the consultant was partnering with a diagnostic type company. So think about, it wasn't Strength Finders, but that's a good example, right? Where you might be familiar with Strength Finders. You can go get certified by Strength Finders. You can then use their tools as a process to go into clients and assess their teams and then give them a report and help them to put it into action to, work better together. This is a similar situation where this particular consultant partnered with a diagnostic company, a company that has a diagnostic that's relevant for her function, for her ideal clients and the goals that they have. And so from there, she's able to really, from a speed to market perspective, she's already got this diagnostic off the shelf. It's been tested. It's been, used for multiple clients and years. And so it just gave her a speed to market type of an approach. And it's also well known. There's that benefit of having speed to market if you're leveraging a pre-existing diagnostic. It's speed to market. It's a well-known brand. In her case, it's a well-known brand. And so that can help to get her foot in the door and for clients to trust the diagnostic as she's delivering it. And they provide a lead flow for her because she's built a one-on-one relationship with the company. They know who she is. She's built relationships with the sales team who will bring her in when clients are even just considering leveraging the company overall for some other work that she doesn't do. And, she's really built this trusted relationship with the company and is not just on a list of potential providers. So that's another best practice if you're going to go down the route of a pre-existing off-the-shelf type of diagnostic. Just beware though, a lot of times these companies will tell you they'll send you leads and then they don't, or the leads are not good, one of the two or both. Also, they commonly will take a portion of your revenue. So you want to be really careful about that. And then this leads us into the mistakes to avoid. And I'll say this a couple of different ways, but you may think you need a prepackaged diagnostic because you think you don't know enough or haven't had enough consulting specific experience. And so you want to feel more confident by leveraging an off the shelf type diagnostic, thinking it's kind of the quote unquote magic bullet, when really it's got its own shortcomings. It's more expensive potentially to get started with because you've got to outlay to that company, and you end up kind of not using it fully because it's not exactly, very good or very fit for purpose for your type of clients. So don't sell yourself short thinking you need a prepackaged diagnostic when really your own expertise will be more valuable for your end clients. Those are the cautions I would give you. So hopefully those 3 case studies give you, without me sharing all the intimate details of what they are, of course, because those consultants' intellectual property, but hopefully it gives you some ideas of different ways you could go about creating and delivering a diagnostic service offering in your business. I'll help you with the 5 steps to put this into action here in a moment. But first, I want to point out some mistakes that you want to avoid when you're pursuing this strategy in your business. And the first is, I've already touched on this, but I want to reemphasize it in a different way. It's you thinking you don't have enough expertise or the right expertise or enough unique expertise to build this type of diagnostic. If you're listening to this podcast, you're not just a brand new consultant, brand new to corporate, brand new to work a professional life. If you are listening to this podcast, I can feel very confident saying that I know you've got expertise. I know that you worked in corporate and have so much experience. I know that you might have had some external consulting through a traditional consultancy. You've got expertise that you've built up, even if you don't think that you do, or if that it's good enough or that it's enough. And the only way to start figuring it out is to put it on paper. The only way, instead of worrying about, I don't have enough, I should have more engagements under my belt first, or what I do is not unique enough, or I don't have a specific specialization or niche yet. All of those are excuses. Those are excuses. Sit down and figure out what you do know. Put down a diagnostic on paper. It might be terrible to start with, but at least you have a starting point and it gives you an idea. And even if you don't go to market with it right away, you could at least start testing it as you're working with your clients moving forward and using it as a tool, one of your tools in your tool belt, and refine it in real life. Don't just decide, oh, I don't have enough expertise or I'm too much of a generalist to do this, Melisa. No, sit down and write it out and put down what you do know instead of worrying about what you don't know. Another common thing that I hear from consultants is, I'm not good at building these type of diagnostics. The crazy thing is, you tell me that you're not good at building a diagnostic, and then I ask you, well, how did you implement this client, or how did you approach that project? And you tell me all the ways. And I'm like, that's the beginning of your diagnostic. I was working with a consultant the other day. She might be listening to this episode. And she was telling me she didn't know how to build her diagnostic. She knows she wants one, wasn't quite sure how to approach it. And she had just shown me an email that she had sent to a potential client. And I said, let's go back to that email. Look at what's in this email. It was kind of the components of a diagnostic in one paragraph with some bullets, and then the process to implement this in another paragraph with bullets. I'm like, it's right there. But we just don't see it, right? Because it's easy for me to see, but a lot of times it's harder for you to see because you're in it. And your brain is having all these questions for yourself about whether it's good enough or not, or whether you know what you're doing or not, or whether you've had enough clients under your belt or not. And I would say to you, just start, write it down. It's probably going to be really bad at first, but at least it gives you a starting point. Okay. So with that, let's wrap up this episode with the 5 steps to put this into action so you can build a diagnostic in your business. The first is choose a specific area that you want to help your clients in to revert, so that you have a very specific topic around which you would create a diagnostic. Let's say you're a digital transformation type of a consultant. That's so broad, right? We want to just pick one sliver of that. And you might say to yourself, well, I'm worried I'm not going to pick the right one. Let me tell you, when you're sitting there worried, you're not going to pick the right one. You're not going to pick anyone. So just pick one. It might not be the right one ultimately that you want to go to market with, but just start. So choose a specific area, a very specific area. You could look at people, process, technology. Think about what could you come in and would be a really easy conversation starter a very easy way to start diagnosing a given client's problem and giving them, a report or an outcome that will be so valuable to them. The other day, a consultant was saying to me, I may have shared this with you on the last episode, but she was just saying, I sat down for a coffee with a client and we just talked about what was going on in their business, just in a conversational way. And that client at the end said, wow, this is just so helpful to have a conversation, be able to step out of the day to day and have a conversation about the bigger picture. So think about it for you. What might be an area that your client hasn't had a chance to think about the bigger picture, and how could you build a diagnostic around that? Think about past clients. Think about your past work in corporate when maybe you're running this function. What would be so valuable to have a diagnostic around? Write down 5 or 10 ideas. Then pick one. Then ask yourself some questions. I'm going to give you these 5 questions and we'll put them in the show notes so you can go copy them. So this is after you've chosen the specific area for a diagnostic. Ask yourself, what are the components of a best-in-class solution for this area that you're diagnosing? What are the measurements a leader would use to measure the health of this area? What are the indicators that this area isn't healthy? What are the prerequisites to a best-in-class process or organization or technology, whatever the area is that you're diagnosing? What are the steps to build a best-in-class area that you're diagnosing? Ask yourself some really powerful questions. Think back to your past experience in corporate. Think back to the clients that you've worked with and round out what this diagnostic would look like. Sketch out your diagnostic offering in that MVP way that I described to you in the first case study that I shared. And then go test your diagnostic. Go test your diagnostic on past clients. Go test your diagnostic on past corporate employers. Go test your diagnostic on people in your network who could be ideal clients. Don't be afraid to go test this with people who will engage with you easily so that you can get the real life input to refine it. Those may be paid or not paid, however you want to approach it. Like I was just sharing with you in case study 1, that particular consultant did a few of them unpaid and then felt confident enough to deliver it at, sort of a beta price and then moved it into her service offering at its full price. What a great way to start conversations with potential clients. Even if you're offering it for free, a day of work or so, you're offering it for free to get it really refined. A lot of times that then leads into follow-on work for implementing whatever the diagnostic uncovered. So think about it as an investment in both your own intellectual property, your own business and unique methodologies, as well as, it could be a potential way to generate leads in that way. And then ultimately, once you've got that refined, it's never going to be perfect. It's going to be good enough to start selling. Then you just want to build your own business process around it to market and sell it. All right. So those are the 5 steps to put this into action. I will give you a few reminder here to go now listen to episode 146, which is about productizing your consulting services. And it will help you to think about how do you productize and systematize a diagnostic like this. And then also make sure you download the book because chapter 6 focuses on the consulting services portfolio, of which this diagnostic is one element. You can find that at melissalieberman.com/book. And then we talked about how to go find it on Amazon. My name is spelled Melisa. There's only one S. And we'll put the link in the show notes as well. So hopefully we'll take you there and you don't have to worry about Amazon search engine. And the last thing I'll say is don't forget to tune in next week because we're going to talk about how to use a simple diagnostic as a lead generation tool. All right. Thanks for tuning in today. And I'm excited to hear about what diagnostics you come up with. Send me an email. I'd love to hear. Talk to you later. Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melissalieberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.